Greetings, Leslie. This will be your critique for your final project here. Thanks for taking the class and taking the time. Hopefully you've gotten something out of it. And I know you are looking at teaching photography online. If you have any questions specific to that, please let me know. Always willing to help and share. Anyways, your work. And this body of work, I think, is really engaging, important, and visually interesting. So, well worth pursuing as you've pursued it, and I think you're really on to a number of things with this work. The overall body of work, I think you've got a nice variety of things. I kind of like how you are organizing it. Sprinkling the symmetrical images in throughout the work. The one thing I thought could be interesting to play with is this image. You have that one first, and then you have this one last. I'd be interested in what it would if we inverted those, because this image seems to have this sort of longing, coming for breath, the sense of what you say you feel in your artist statement. This sort of this judgment and the lack of acceptance for people who are larger. That seems to come out into play, because when you come out of the water and you look like you're taking a deep breath, there's some tension in that. And I like, and this one, there's almost a serenity to it and an acceptance to it. And I just kind of want to play where I give the viewer that tension and that struggle first, and then at the end what feels perhaps like some degree of acceptance for you, whether you've completely accepted this or not. I don't know. But I also think it's a really important issue. And looking at your artist statement and how you talk about it. But then I thought Mark did a really good job in one of his responses to this work, where he says, "I believe your photos truly hit a sore nerve about our society's rarely spoken sociopathic behaviors concerning body image." Because we do, as you talked about, push this body image, and digital is doing it, but it's been going on longer than digital. Photography has this role. We can look back in advertising photography, models, pornography, and pornography is not recent. It's not just the 90s or the 80s or the 70s or the 60s or the 50s. It goes back. You can find pornographic images from the 1800s, mid-1800s. So we always had this issue with the body in photography. A great book out there called The Body, too, about photography. Beautiful photographs and nice history on it. But getting back to your work here, I like, I think the water is this great metaphor. I really like, and I didn't think about it. I just like the visuals of it. I like how it contains you, and I like how it creates this fluidity and this abstraction. But I like how you tied it conceptually to the idea of how water makes us feel weightless, because we put so much pressure on people and weight, and that's a huge part of this body issue. And so it's a really important topic. And also, just in general, but also seems also to be something that is more specifically put on to females than males, though certainly larger men also suffer stereotypes. But your work, so you've tied it together conceptually, but visually, I think it hits just as well as how well you're tying the ideas together. My visualization of these works are like life-size. I think they look so just have a presence on a wall, 40 by 60 or even larger than that. Almost life-size representations. And big is big, and big is big in the contemporary world of photography if you look at the exhibitions. So, all right. Let's get into some of the individual images. As I talked about this one, there seems like some sort of serenity and acceptance here, like how clear the face is. Your body is still some obscured and abstracted, and then the fabric flowing over you, and I really like how you talked about that fabric as well. This one seems a little inconsistent with the watercolor, like it's just less saturated and less green, and I'd actually fix that if I were you, just to keep some consistency throughout it. But the image itself, I love the textures, I love the bubbles, I like the hands reaching up, I like this really abstracted figure that we see below it. I think that's something you've done really well with here. Is you have a large degree of abstractions of the figure and the form and the interaction. And then when we get to the images where you deal with the symmetry, I thought that was so spot on, just conceptually and also visually so interesting. And the different forms, like we almost see a form here. It almost looks like a cat or a bear or something. I don't know. That becomes interesting. It's almost like 3 figures here. And playing with that idea of symmetry and just kind of smacking us in the face with that idea. Now, a larger person can be symmetrical. But that is also a big part of our beauty. So I think that symmetry speaks well about these preconceived notions that we have, that we are taught, or I don't know if that's a baseline psychological thing or if something we're taught. And I always get curious about those sorts of things. Are they things that we're just taught? There's certainly things that are pushed. But there also might be some psychology in symmetry in our relationship to balance and beauty. I don't know. That'd be something to look into. But really like the image, and again that veil, the white fabric almost seems to come off and to some degree reveal a little bit more, but still being abstracted. And I think there's a nice motion. That's what I thought you also dealt well with. I mean, I think you did a really good job of exploring the interaction between these elements: yourself, the water, and that fabric, in a lot of different ways and presenting to a lot of different ways. And this is another what a nice image. Just I love how you merge the head together. Look at this reflection and this up, down, and then the leading lines of the white. They are compositionally strong as they are conceptually strong. Okay, so. Another nice abstraction, nice variation of things, another interesting form. This almost looks like a moth or a butterfly, and that could be interesting to think about and play about. Think the symbolism of animals. And I think moths definitely have a symbolism to them all on their own. I think this is more moth-like. I'm trying to think what that symbolism is to me. I don't know why I keep thinking of a symbol of death. I'm not positive on that, or if that's something else from literature I picked up or whatever. I'd be curious to see that, but I would find that appropriate if my ideas are correct here, because the body image is destructive to the individuals who suffer that judgment, extremely destructive, and we have all these destructive things, like we all have to be the same, we all have to look the same, beautiful, fit this narrow perspective. And another portfolio class dealt with depression and how people are judged for that, and it's somewhat similar, very different, and certainly the effects and so many different ways, but not different in how society judges those who are somewhat don't fit that norm in there. So, and I like this one because here we get some of that objective look of the figure, and then we get this nice flow here in the abstraction of the fabric, and of course the figure representing the figure and body image, and the fabric representing culture and covering and some degree of, I don't know, shame with that, where we have to cover, going back to original sin, but maybe even more sinful for those people who do not fit our idealization of the body image. Anyways, this is a nice photograph, nice image, just interesting forms and interesting abstractions, and the reflection creates this image, which almost represents some Georgia O'Keeffe-ishness, flowers, women, sort of things. So, there's actually a nice sort of stillness. So many of these have all this movement and this activity and action going on. This one, I like how we place it sort of in the middle here, and it kind of brings me back to a point of thoughtfulness, because of just the subtleties here and the stillness, and then you're facing away and you're not as moving active in this image, and it seems more contemplative and meditative. It brings me back to a place where I can kind of take in what I've taken before. There are a lot of interesting things within this composition in and of itself, I think it's a really strong photograph, but also it's one of those images that allows me to reflect and kind of bring things together in it. So nice. And then, more form. I do tend to see a lot of moths with these. So, but again, like the reflective. And there's a nice a variety, though, in what you're showing, the hands, and then I'm not sure even what I'm looking at up here, but, and then the fabric out here. There's just a good variety. And then the complete immersion and the movement and the moving down and the different textures of the water. So many different textures, and then of course how our view is abstracted differently when the water moves. It's like a lens, and we're looking through. Just a nice photograph and fits well. But here is another example of the nice variety you're giving me in this body of work, because you're zooming in on this very specific area. It's not like we just have one viewpoint, one angle of perspective. We have some wider angle shots, we have some zooming in shots, we've got different textures, we have some overtly symmetrical things other than other images that maybe just play with symmetry, just how you compose them. But here we get focused on the hair and the water and the sheet and the skin, and the different textures are all created because of the water movement on all those things. Good, just good. So. Okay, another nice symmetrical here. I'm seeing a face again with this. But, another nice element of variety in looking at and playing with these images. The other thing I appreciate how you talked about in your artist statement was the three artists that you selected are so vastly different in their time frames. Callahan, mid 20th century, 40s, 50s, 60s. He's probably not 40s. I think he's more 50s, 60s, 70s. But he has a more modernist aesthetic sense than a postmodernist or contemporary aesthetic sense. The subtraction and simplicity and whatnot. And then you deal with Sherman. Definitely how she deals with. Constructions of identity, totally in line with what you're dealing with, but it's more a construction of societal identity. Of course, that is also what Sherman does, but you're doing it in a different way, and I'm trying to figure out how to verbalize that. But so to connecting your work to her, I think was really nice, spot on, and well thought out. Umbrico, I see a little looser connection to what you're doing. But I like how you brought her in. She is contemporary. She is now. Cindy Sherman's still alive and working, but I think artists have their peaks, and she's I think less influential now than I would say Umbrico is. At least to me, I find Umbrico's work very pushing the boundaries of media and sharing, and just in many ways photography as a generic sort of thing. But then she does bring it back to specific ideas. So I like the three artists. So the looser relationship as far as Umbrico, you talk about repetition, variance, and tone, so you connect very well with that. Because there's a lot, your use of symmetry, reflection in this certainly creates a repetition. But there's also a repetition in these images of textures, tones, colors. All right. So this has this image itself has another nice visual to it. Again, more variety, and and not to demean, give each image its individual due, but and then this image sort of coming up for breath, and we in a sense see more of the figure in this image and in the other ones, and I like that variety that adds. We just get to see in a sense that more objectivity of it. So I think the work is good. It is strong. I think it's something that you could seek to share it with, get it in exhibitions. If you think in that terms, I know certainly K-12 educators are not pushed in that manner as we are at the university level. But this work has a presence, and it has, it has a finished quality to it And I don't think it'd take that much work to finish it and bring it up to exhibition quality. That takes some money though, especially if you're doing large scale printing. But no, there's a beauty and an importance and a cultural issue that you're addressing that's really important in there. So, anyways, good job on the work. Thank you for taking the class. I hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions, just let me know.